Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of DC Stargirl. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So I love everyone trying their best to play normal, and then Pat and Mike are doing such a terrible job, but Barbara and Courtney are doing a pretty good. It's like, look at them, they're naturals at this. And then also Sylvester's like, wait, it's Jakeem, Zeke, and Rick is like, wait, is this really how you spend your Wednesday nights playing games together like this? I was like, I'm actually curious. It seems like it might be. But it's like, oh, I enjoy, because it's like, yeah, you have to have like something that's your typical thing, so that has to be the case. And it's like, oh, Yolanda's the one that's doing the best because she's just at work and stuff. So, but Yolanda, well, let's focus on Yolanda's situation for real quickly. It's like, it sucks. Her mom is like, oh yeah, like calling, being like, oh, like she should be working so many night shifts. And it's like, oh, Maria ended up telling her like she's not. This is her first time in like the entire month or something she's worked a night shift. So it's like, oh, or the late shift. So it's like, okay, so what have you been doing? Who have you hanging out with? So Yolanda can't keep those parts of her life separate anymore. I mean, everyone's kind of struggling with that now. Like, obviously, Courtney kind of went through her struggles now, but there's like, well, those lines are blurring even more so now. Feels like she found a balance before, but now that balance is kind of off kilter. Same thing for Beth, balancing the two sides of her life, specifically with her parents, has become hard, and now Yolanda, it's catching up with her. I mean, to be fair, that's super out of her control. It's like they still blame her for everything that happened to her. It's like, all that you've done. Once again, it's so infuriating because you're like, oh, that she did something happened to her. Yeah, she made a mistake, but also she's a teenager. She's allowed to make mistakes, and it's like you getting on her is like when she should have her family support, when she felt so isolated, and so, she went through that alone because she didn't have her family support. In fact, her family damned her for it, and it's just like, dude, that sucks. And and going back to it, they even played at the beginning. Beth was like, oh, how should I handle this parent situation? Should I let them in? She's like, would you let yours in? And Yolanda's like, no, but my parents suck. It's like, your parents are super supportive of you. They kind of always have been. I mean, granted, you were like super clingy to them until you kind of branched out, but still, your parents want to be a part of your life. They will always support you no matter what. They will be by your side no matter what. Yolanda honestly can't say the same thing about her family. And it's like, oh, that sucks. I guess that's also why she probably wanted like the confessional probably check too, because she did confess to some stuff in there that, it's like, well, that's supposed to be just a private place, but also especially for her to express how she feels. But the moment she comes home, because she's getting rid of the cameras in the house, her mom's like, oh, who are you hanging out with? Boys? Were you doing drugs? Like, the fact of the matter is, because, once again, she sent some pictures to someone she was in love with and trusted, and that trust was broken. Like, once again, that wasn't just on him, but regardless of the fact. And it's like, yeah, that's, you must be doing all this other terrible stuff. You're like, oh, God, that sucks. And Yolanda's like, right, if you love me, you'll trust me. She's like, well, give me your phone or you're not staying in this house. Then get out. I'm like, are you serious right now? And she did that. And the sad thing is, her dad will probably support her mom on that decision. So Yolanda ends up leaving. It's like, you're pushing your daughter further and further away. Because like, for her, it's like, oh, we're going to go to church and you're going to talk to the father about it. He honestly would be more on her, not probably. He definitely is more on Yolanda's side than he is your side, because he realizes how judgmental you are. He even wanted to talk to Yolanda about it, but she kind of shut that down. It was just like, to me, that was like the most heartbreaking thing. And like the one, like she could have gone to other places, but she's like, yeah, I know me and Courtney aren't talking right now, but I had nowhere else to go, because despite the issues, it's like Courtney's still her best friend. And it's like, and she honestly, like, Courtney would welcome her with open arms. It's like, of course you could stay here as long as you want to. Granted, she's on her own situation this episode. We'll get to that soon enough. So I just had to talk about that since it's just like right there in the forefront of my mind. I was like, damn, that sucks so much. And I hope, it's going to be interesting, because I wonder, is Barbara going to end up talking to her parents, being like, and because Barbara will probably be like, you don't realize how much of a good kid you have, like, because I think Barbara should be the one that kind of talk to them and be like, because she, right, it's like I'm a parent too, and but it's going into that territory of who are you to tell me how to raise my kids. It's like, well, the fact is you're pushing your daughter away, that like you didn't care what she was going to be, you didn't care what she was going to end up, but you still kicked her out regardless because she asked you to trust her, and the fact is you won't, because of one thing that Yolanda's, it's just infuriating, dude. You're just like, you feel so bad for her. Some other elements is we are finally seeing like kind of like the cracks in the armor when it comes to Rick being our man 24/7. It's basically like being hyped up on, I guess, like it's like having adrenaline pumping through you like 24/7. I guess it's almost like pumping steroids like 24/7, because he's getting like that roid rage. Like he's like no, it's fun, like being our man's finally fun. I never have to worry about my, like he's like, oh yeah, watch this, and he like punches a pillar in the school, and you're like, what? You didn't even have to fucking, why are you doing that? Find something to binge. You don't have to punch. He's like, oh, come on. He's like, I'm amped. It's like, oh, he's acting scary. It's like, I figured, once again, there had to be a reason for it. I figured it wasn't just a philosophical angle of like, right, you don't want to have like that, well, that much power all the time can corrupt you. But it seems like it isn't just like a metaphorical thing. It's also a physical and mental thing too. That like, once again, it's like your adrenaline pumping like all the time. He tells Beth, like, oh, I'm our man all the time now. I think that's the first time he's probably talked to anyone on the team about that situation, even though it's kind of been a little while, so. They did bring up the whole Courtney thing, because even Beth, because he's like, yeah, I don't know if she wants to be Stargirl. It's like, you know that she does, Rick, and it's like, yeah. It's like, well, sadly for her, she is feeling that way, because even Sylvester was like, you and Courtney will work it out. You two just need to talk. The fact is that, because Courtney feels bad too, because it's like, man, I let everyone down. Like, I don't even know if they want to be my friends anymore. They don't need me as Stargirl. Like, maybe my whole job was never to be the full-time leader of the JSA. Maybe it was just to get them to where they needed to be, help them along their journey. Because Pat's like, no. You're the reason why they've been able to grow into who they are, because of your friendship, because of your leadership. But it's like, yeah, but maybe I was only meant to get them so far. And like, maybe it's someone else's job to take it all the way. Because she's like, it's not even just about the Stargirl thing. It's like, maybe they don't even want to be my friends anymore. It's like they'll find their way around this. Find their way to move forward with this, because because Pat knows better than anyone. I mean, obviously his secrets came out last season, so he knows what it's like, and also the past and everything. Sylvester keeps bringing it up of like, he doesn't want this JSA to end up like the other JSA. His decisions ended up having an impact, and they never moved forward because of it. But I think this JSA is different. That yeah, it sucks that Courtney lied and kept this from them, but I think it is also because Courtney has a tendency to try and do a lot on her own and wanted to prove the results first. Also, like, her feelings kind of got in the middle of that too, because she likes Cameron. This episode in particular does make it seem like, because I kept wondering, like, does this have anything to do with, like, I couldn't remember the place's name, but Helix, but that Helix and Mr. Bones thing, and it seemed like those are two completely different things happening at the same time. At least with this episode, it makes it really lean into the fact is it seems like the whole Mr. Bones and Helix situation is purely a Ginny and Todd story that could evolve into something more, or maybe it actually is connected. So it's like, all right, so if they potentially have nothing to do with who's spying on all of Blue Valley, then who does? Who is? Like, what is this all about? Because it's like, that's still the big mystery of like, so I thought that was fascinating. We also got the thing with Jakeem, which I thought was so fascinating too. Him and Zeke kind of brought up this situation of like, because Jakeem tried to use the wish to be like, hey, I wish for every camera in Blue Valley that was touched by the gambler's killer, and all those cameras came about. It's like, well, they had the whole thing of like, oh, like, the killer has many names or something like that, and you're like, wait, what? It's like, I was like, what is that all about? It's because I love that Zeke ended up, he's like, ooh, I found this. Ooh, I found a Betamax. This is awesome. But I'm curious, like, I was like, could it be that the killer actually did touch all that stuff? But then Zeke brought up something really interesting. He's like, maybe the reason why you don't have to just be specific, maybe it comes down to the user's heart. It's like, you have to kind of base it, which once again makes me go think Kingdom Hearts, try to do something with all your heart, Those lines and moments obviously really resonate. It's something that's really like heavy in Kingdom Hearts 3 in particular, of like, right, doing something with all your heart. And so that's kind of it. Like, you don't have confidence because it's like, right, in this particular situation, because they were playing Clue, or he rather wanted to play Clue. Zeke uses Clue as a metaphor. It's like, all right, we know who the person murdered was, the gambler. We know the location, the trailer part, but we don't know who actually the murderer is. And because you don't have the confidence behind that, you're not putting your confidence in the wish as well. It's like, so you need to put all your strength, your heart, your desire, your confidence in that. Because basically the wish, even being as specific as it is, if it's mixed with your doubts, it jumbles the wires, and that's why the wishes aren't 100% working. I was like, that's fascinating. But it's like, right, if Jakeem can like work on that, if he can put his heart into every wish, then maybe, just maybe, this can make things a little easier going forward. So I thought that was such a fascinating, like, just weaving that in there a little bit about like, oh yeah, like the wish situation, like kind of explaining like why, like giving even more depth of like why that isn't, fully working all the time. So I thought that was such a neat little detail. Obviously, the other aspects of this episode with Pat and Courtney, obviously the shade and Jenny ties into the whole Todd thing. We find out that Todd had an experience 6 months ago when Jenny first got the ring. And I don't know whether it's like a duality because of, I don't know. Maybe it's like a duality to like Alan's ring or something. Like maybe I'm not well versed in the lanterns at all. I probably know like the bare minimum. I've seen bits of like there's that Cartoon Network series from a couple years back. There's also like the Green Lantern movie with Ryan Reynolds that most people hated. And even then, I haven't seen that movie in like over a decade. So I don't know the ins and outs of the Green Lanterns that well. So I don't know their circumstances, but part of me was wondering, like, could it be like there's a duality to those rings? Because I know the rings come in different shapes and colors, and those represent like different things that the rings kind of feed on from people, like pull from people. But I'm like, could it be that the ring had a little bit of like, maybe it's something that happened like before Alan died, like maybe because of that, like it imbued the ring with darkness, or maybe it's just a natural process that the ring has both the light and darkness of it. So Jenny got the light, and it seemed like, because the moment Jenny awakened that, like something awakened in Todd, but then like a darkness came out of him. Not unless that's a situation, well, because I would assume they'd have the same mom. So I was about to say, not unless it's something from their mom that awakened that maybe only he got, but she didn't. I don't know, because it's not even like the shade situation, the dark situation hadn't even happened yet. This is like, once again, 6 months ago. So, I mean, not unless it was already residuals left from like the previous battle with the JSA and the ISA like 10 years prior. I don't know. But I'm like, why was he having, where did that darkness come from? Like, I feel like that has to be like a him thing, that just like it reacted poorly, or at least the light brought that to the surface or something. I don't know. But the Helix group found him and brought him back. So it's like, yeah, when Jenny was there looking for her brother, he was there the entire time because he had been brought there sometime beforehand. And yeah, they had lied and said they didn't have him when in fact they did. So, but I love how that ties into like the shade showing up. He grabs Courtney and says, I don't need the staff, I need Courtney Whitmore, because, you know, and I think that's going to be an interesting thing of like, right, kind of valuing yourself is like, see, sometimes doesn't value herself as like Courtney Whitmore can do just as much as Stargirl. I mean, yeah, you might not have the staff, you might not have the powers, but your heart, who you are, plays a big role. It's why you are who you are. That's why you've held, like, you've been the glue that's kind of held this team together. You're what brought this team together. But it turns out the Shade is upset. He's just like, oh, the fact is my powers are a little wonky, and this girl, she's just so immature, and basically he's just going on and on about how annoying she is. And it's Jenny. And it's like, but basically, his darkness has gotten her light. Well, he's like, well, your light's gotten in my darkness. And Pat's like, it's just their classic peanut butter and chocolate situation. I was thinking the exact metaphor, Pat. Oh, your chocolate got in my peanut butter. Well, your peanut butter got on my chocolate type of situation. So, So I just thought that was such an interesting thing. Basically, their power sources are merging together and it's weakening both of them. So now he's in like constant pain and stuff like that. So they want Courtney's help. That it's like, right, if they can go into like, if she could like sever this connection between them, maybe they can go back to being okay. It's like, right, she helped like, it's like, right, she's faced the Shadowlands before, so she knows like what's what. But Courtney's like, yeah, I wanted to make sure my friends and family were okay. Like I was worried that like if I didn't come back, if I didn't make it out, like they'd be in trouble. So once again, very similar to the Jakeem thing. I think it is just like a with all your heart is kind of what you have to do. And I love that it's like the Shade's like, you know, because Pat's like, oh, these kids need help, and the Shade's like, when don't they? When don't they? He's like, the fact is, it was amusing at first, but now it's just annoying. Like I'm going to go back to my pain-free life. But it's like, right, you might have to help us save Todd because that might just be the thing that ends up severing the connection. He's like, fine. But the fact is that he was also drawn to Todd because I guess the darkness in Todd, like maybe that, I mean, darkness attracts darkness. So it could be like almost like he can sense it. He can feel it. So, but whatever it was, the experiments that they're doing on him, even wasn't Nurse Love, even she had her hesitation with Mr. Bones was like, we need to intensify the treatment. After 6 months, we're not doing it, so we're just going to have to like double down. Like, and they say treatment's almost like, oh, we are curing him, but I don't know. I don't know whether he actually does believe like, no, I need to stay here because it is the right thing to do, or like what they're actually doing. It's once again, it's supposed to be a place for troubled youths and stuff like that. Well, we saw what happened with Jenny. Jenny was kind of like drugged up and like just kind of like not herself when Pat and Courtney found her last season. So at this place, so I don't know. But like I said, there was even that hesitation when she was reaching for the knob to intensify things. Like it didn't sit well with her. So I'm curious to see what the hell that all turns out to be, because maybe she's even at odds with Mr. Bones about it. Maybe she actually does feel bad about some of the stuff that she's doing there. Who knows? But by the time they do get to Todd, he's like, no, you can't. I have to stay here because if you let me out, I'm going to destroy the world. And the moment Jenny touched him, like, I think her light, once again, it affects the darkness in them. Like, they might be two sides of the same coin, but that reunion, I think, awakened that darkness even more. And it kind of turns into like a shadow creature. And you're like, what the hell is this? And we don't know what happened to Courtney and Jenny. Maybe they're still there, but we know Pat and the Shade got thrown into the Shadowlands. At least it seems like they did. So it's like, and it seems like old-timey Blue Valley might be where they are. So I'm wondering, is that more like the Shade that's pulling from, or like what's going on there? Because I don't remember 100% how the Shadowlands, because I know it makes you see things. Obviously, it's all like illusions. Like once again, it's kind of like an inverse, almost like a Bizarro world. Not quite, but that's like the clearest example I can remember of like most recent, with Superman and Lois. But I want to say it's like it's, I don't know. I don't remember there being a lot of people, but maybe there was at one point in time. But I thought like the people were all like fake, but it seemed like just the town's normal. Even the fact that the person was honking their horn in the car and Pat and Shade had to roll out of the way. That was like, I don't remember that things working like that the last time they were here in the Shadow Realm, but I don't know, maybe. Either way, lots of interesting developments. We already, obviously because of the episode title, this was going to be at least a two-parter, so where the next part of this takes us, I have no idea, but I'm very, very excited to find out where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.